He is the only one who knows the truth, and he is demanding a price for his silence. Then Noar meets Raymond, an elderly woman whose best friend has just died. Raymond keeps her friend alive the only way she knows how, by inhabiting her stories. But soon, Raymond's lies take on a life of their own. Written the propulsive, written with propulsive energy, with a humor and deep. Wait. Written with propulsive energy, dark humor, and deep insight, The Liar reveals the far-reaching consequences of even our smallest choices and explores the hidden corners of nature to reveal the liar and the truth teller in all of us. Does that sound interesting? Yeah. Okay, great. The liar. The liar. The liar. The liar. The liar. Okay. Part 1. Part 1. Thought. I'm already fucking up. I'm sorry, Bestie. I'm sorry, Bestie. I'm sorry, Bestie. Though it was the end of the summer, the heat still waited outside front doors along with the morning newspaper, both boding ill. So sequestered in the air-conditioned homes were the people of the city that, when it came time for the seasons to change, they didn't feel the newly autumn-tinged air. And perhaps autumn might have come and gone unnoticed if the long sleeves suddenly appeared. The shop windows hadn't announced its arrival. Standing in front of one of those windows now was a young girl. Her reflection looked back at her from the glass. A bit short, a bit freckled. The mannequins peering at her from behind the glass were tall and pretty, and perhaps that was why the girl walked away quickly. A flock of pigeons took flight above her with a surprised flapping of the wings. The girl muttered an apology as she continued walking, and the pigeons, having already forgotten what had frightened them, returned to perch on a nearby bench. At the entrance to the bank, a line of people snaked its way to the ATM. A deaf-mute beggar stood beside them, hand extended, and they pretended to be blind. When the girl's gaze momentarily met his, she once again mumbled an apology and hurried on. She didn't want to be late for her shift. As she was about to cross the square, a loud honk made her stop in her tracks, and a large bus hurtled angrily past her. A poster on the back wished her the Rosh Hashanah holiday was still a week away. But the streets were already filled with the promises of big sales. Across the street were three girls her age were snapping pictures in front of the fountain, their laughter ricocheting off the paving stones. As she listened, she told herself over and over again, I don't mind walking around. I don't mind it at all. She crossed the square quickly, the saleswoman said, "It looks lovely," adding, "If I were you, I'd take it too." As they stole glances at the clock, bladders bursting, and stood at the counter, ringing up sales on the cash register. Oh wait, I'm sorry. A charming young man stood at the counter, ringing up sales on the cash register with fingers that had run through his boyfriend's hair earlier that morning. Customers left the shops, their swinging bags twisting around each other, creating an urban rustling that was as much a harbinger of autumn as the rustle of leaves falling from treetops. In the ice cream parlor next door, the girl went behind the glass counter and began handing spoons of ice cream to those who wanted to taste. Knowing that summer vacation was about to end, and no one had yet tasted her, the only girl in her class, still a virgin. And next summer, when the fields yellowed, she would be wearing a soldier's army green. Now, she handed an ice cream cone to the little boy standing in front of her and tried to smile as she said for the thousandth time that week, "Here you are." The next person in line asked to taste the fig sorbet. Noar knew right away that he wouldn't buy fig sorbet. He would only taste it along with 10 other flavors, and in the end, he'd ask for chocolate. Nonetheless, she handed him a bite of fig sorbet on a plastic spoon and glanced quickly at the clock above the counter. Only 7 more hours to go. At that very moment, the door opened and they stepped inside. She had been waiting the entire summer for this moment and had even written about it in great detail in her notebook. Yotam would come in and be surprised to see her there. I'm so sorry. I'm in the ghetto. I'm just kidding. Okay. Yotam would come in and be surprised to see her there. She would offer him ice cream free of charge, and in return, he would offer her a ride home on his motorbike. She would say that she still had a few hours left in her shift, and he would say that a few hours wasn't a long time to wait. But when the moment finally arrived 3 days before the end of the summer vacation, Yotam didn't come in alone. He was surrounded by his crew of friends, and one of them was Sure, who until 4 months ago had still been Noar's friend. Noar's only friend, to be precise. The 5 of them stood there, and although they weren't particularly good looking as individuals, standing there at the counter, they seemed to Noar to be incredibly beautiful. They shone with the glow of being a clique, as if the fact that there were 5 of them made each of them appear at least 5 times more beautiful. They examined the row of flavors spread out before them, trying to decide, and for a moment, Noar dared to hope they wouldn't neckerize her. What am I saying, Bestie? Noar dared to hope they wouldn't recognize her. raised his beautiful eyes from the ice cream to the counter, frowned slightly, and said, "Hey, you go to school with us. Your insurance class, right?" Moran asked as she pulled her hair back into a ponytail in a gesture that was as ordinary as it was charming. Noar nodded quickly. Yes, she was in Cher's class. In fact, she had sat next to Cher since second grade, until that morning 4 months ago, when she arrived at school to find that Cher had fired her without even a letter of a warning. There was a moment of silence before Yotham said, "So I'll take the cookie dough." Noar had already begun bowling ice cream into a cup when he said, "In a cone." And the fact was all Yotham, and that in fact was all Yotham said to her, because immediately after that, the others began telling her what flavors and toppings they wanted, and Moran added in a tone brimming with insecure amiability that they needed to get their ice cream in a hurry because the movie they wanted to see started in 20 minutes. And all the while, Cher stood silently looking at Noar, a small expression of guilt on her face until she finally said she'd have vanilla. She didn't have to say it. Noar knew what flavor Cher liked. 5 minutes later, they were already outside on their way to the movie. Noar looked at the sorbets displayed under the counter in flowering layers of red and orange. Dozens of fingerprints covered the glass partition in front of her, all made by fingers pointing at the ice cream. Never had her. The glass door opened and a gang of noisy children burst inside. When this day was over, she'd play music she liked, not the songs that Gabby insisted attracted customers. She'd still have to pick up all the napkins people had dropped and the sticky spoons parents hadn't felt like she'd throwing away after their kids finished their ice cream. She'd still have to wash the floors, scrub the fingerprints off the partition, and take out the garbage, but it would be her music in the background. Then she'd fill a styrofoam box with ice cream and take it to the homeless guy who stood near the fountain. Or maybe she just put it down not far from him, because the last time she went up to him, he had shouted some garbled words at her that she didn't completely understand. She'd been daydreaming too long about the homeless guy and the ice cream, and about the gang in the movies without her, because when she looked around, she saw that the kids had taken off with their ice cream without paying. Gabby would deduct it from her salary. A large lump of misery filled her throat, and she took a deep breath and swallowed it whole. 6.5 hours to go. If only this day would end already. She didn't know that this day would end differently from all the days she had known before, that this day would change all the days that followed, that this was absolutely the last day she would be nothing more than a drab ice cream server. She weighed 7.5 pounds at birth. Beyond that, there was nothing to say about her, simply because a moment before that she hadn't existed. The people who a moment earlier had been called Ronit and Ami were now called Mom and Dad, and looked at her through a haze of emotion. The birth had taken 19 hours, and at its conclusion, Ronit's vocal cords were almost as frayed as Ami's eardrums. The newborn baby girl lying between them was very red and very wrinkled, but the delivery nurse told them it was only temporary. "She'll be beautiful," she said, "like a flower." It wasn't clear what the source of the nurse's prophetic confidence was, but the parents accepted her existed on their own. "We'll call her Noar," Ronit said in a hoarse voice, "and she'll be beautiful." Ami was quick to nod. "A flower." The nurse went off to other rooms and other deliveries, and so, before she was 10 minutes old, the baby girl had a prophecy and a name that meant water lily. Choosing a baby's name is no small matter. The fact the first tiny cells are only just beginning to divide in the womb, and the parents are already divided in their opinions. One wants Tamar, and the other demands Daniel. One insists on Miguel, and the other to Gracielle. It would be better to wait for the cells to mature into an actual creature, so that the name is born from the person, instead of the person being born into the name. But parents, unable to control themselves, are driven by their hopes and expectation to plunge ahead, and hopes and expectations have a way of outdistancing reality, creating so large a gap that the child is left behind, forever running to catch up to her parents' dream for her. Noar wasn't ugly, far from it, but the delivery nurse had said beautiful, and that prophecy had pursued her from infancy. She grew up to be a timid, withdrawn young girl who lived in a world as if she were an uninvited guest at a party. Now, standing behind the counter of an ice cream parlor, she recalled the moment when Yotam and his friends had come in and recognized her. "Hey, you go to school with us." It was clear to her that he hadn't known her name, and that he hadn't cared enough to ask. When the stream of customers in the ice cream parlor slowed to a trickle, Noar took the key that was hanging on a hook like a why? When the stream of customers in the ice cream parlor slowed to a trickle, Noar took the key that was hanging on a hook like so sorry. Come back to life, come back to life. I'm getting sleepy. I'm putting myself to sleep, Bestie. Are you almost there? Are you getting tired at least? We still have a couple of pages in the first chapter, so let's just get through that and we'll see how you feel, okay? Noar took the key that was hanging on a hook like a suicide and hurried outside to employee's bathroom in the alley. A pair of alley cats stopped copulating for a moment to glance angrily at her, and then with a wave of their tails went back to their business. Noar squeezed into the narrow stall and closed the door quickly, as if it weren't two cats she had just seen copulating, but, heaven forbid, her parents. When she left the stall, she straightened her blue dress with a trembling hand. She had borrowed it from her sister at the beginning of the summer. How hopeful she had been then that it wasn't only the dress she was borrowing, but also the charm required to carry off wearing it. Her younger sister moved with such grace, such fluidity, that the city's traffic lights blushed with pleasure whenever she approached. The already traffic congested streets grew even more congested because the lights became flooded with such a red wave of lust. The traffic was forced to stand still, and so Maya strolled on from one pedestrian green light to another without ever having to wait. Not even at the busiest intersection, but for Noar it was different. She always waited. When they were infants, people couldn't tell them apart. Noar was fires that been as bright as a summer dawn now flitted around the house like an agitated bird. Noar knew the story well. Family members told it regularly, and just as she learned at school to stand at attention when the national anthem was played, she followed the rules of the ritual whenever she heard that family anthem, listening with her head bowed at the sound of the family words and mumbling "Thank God" at the appropriate times. Thank God that when the ambulance took Mom, the neighbor called Dad immediately. Thank God that Dad managed to get to the phone a minute before the ground operation began. Thank God that when the commander heard about Dad's new baby girl, he gave him a 12-hour pass. And here's saying thank God was not allowed. She'd fallen into that trap once, and her mother had shot her with the withering glance. Who would have believed it? Right after Dad left, his tank crossed into Lebanon, and everyone was killed. Thank God by his birth saved Dad. As the years passed, the last sentence became slightly shortened to simply thank God Maya saved Dad. Not Maya's birth, the medical event, not the commander who had given him a pass. Maya had saved Dad. Everyone knew it and everyone talked about it, and when Noar finally said the word daddy, they barely noticed, because that's just how it is. All babies eventually say daddy, but not all babies rescue their fathers from a burning tank. On their first day of work at the ice cream parlor, Noar left her house wearing Maya's dress and better spirits than usual. For the first time in her life, she had a chance to begin everything anew, and there was no better place for it than the ice cream parlor. That wonderland of flavors and colors, as if someone had managed to trap a rainbow. Attach a door at the front and a cash register at the back, and place it on a street corner. Her parents had praised her for deciding to work during the summer vacation, but she hadn't done it only for the money. It was for the people that she went there. A 50-minute wait. It was for the people that she went there. A 50-minute ride from her house in the suburbs. It was for the welcome eyes of strangers who didn't know what the neighborhood knew about her. That there was nothing to know about her. That nothing had ever happened to her. No adventures, no misadventures, no marginal harmless existence that was now 17 years old. Even the pimples on her face weren't enough to make her unique. There are teenagers who have truly exciting geological formations on their face. Deep craters, unforgettable hills and valleys. The far's sebaceous glands, however, behaved moderately, satisfied to appropriate only her forehead and a small enclave on her nose. But the pimples, though they bothered no one else, bothered Noar herself quite a bit. In her mind, she called herself Sit Face. Names and nicknames are very dangerous things. Lavi Maiman, who lived on the 4th floor of the building that housed the ice cream parlor, could tell you that despite all the scoops of chocolate that had rolled around in his stomach, he was still as skinny as the bars of the bicycle racks the city installs on the streets. Perhaps he could have borne the humiliation of this existence if his parents had given him a name that was easier to live up to than Lavi, which means lion. But he carried the burden of the king of the jungle on his skinny shoulders as a child. Lavi had waited for the mane to grow in and the muscles to develop under his skin when he finally reached his teens. But the years passed and the hair refused to grow. He had only 14 hairs on his chin. He counted them in front of the mirror every night. And as for the muscles, well, forget it. His father, lieutenant colonel in the reserves, Arai Maiman, business with the same iron fist he had once used to command his soldiers. And just as Araimaimans, just as Araimaimans soldiers had kept climbing the hill because they were less afraid of the terrorists shooting at them from above than they were of the hot-tempered commander below. So the stock of the company Araimaimon had founded after his discharge also continued to climb well beyond every economic forecast because it feared the very glance of its commander. Lieutenant Colonel Hyman did not give his son the name Lavi. That decision was made by his wife, a beautiful young woman who admired her husband, the country, and her Pilates teacher, not necessarily in that order, since she was especially fond of the name Lavi. Her husband generously allowed her to make the choice. As the boy grew into a teenager, it was clear that he did not possess even a smidgen of his father's predatory charm. If there was any connection between him and the world of large felines, it was only as a potential meal. In his son's early years, the father still roared at him and pierced him with the same look that had once driven his soldiers and then his stock upward. But after a while, he stopped doing even that. Lavi began to miss the loud reprimands, even the roars. Anything was better than the silence, the quiet that followed the disappointment. In the evening, as his mother made her ablutions in preparation for her Pilates class, and his father purred contentedly in front of the TV, Lavi opened his bedroom window and looked down at the street. The urban river rushed by below him, gangs of teenagers on summer vacation, bobbing and lurking in the current. Hearing their laughter, he asked himself whether they were to keep laughing if his body landed beside them, a dull thud on the paving stones, whether the girls would bend to help, run slim fingers over his short cropped hair, the disappointing mane, whether they would finally look at him, if not with compassion, then at least with interest, take out their mobile phones and snap a picture of the sprawled body, its arms embracing the street, arms that had never embraced a girl. And so, every evening, the city adorned itself with the glitter of streetlights, and Lavi Myman stood at the window, contemplating his death, thinking about many faces that would look at him when he landed near the entrance to the ice cream parlor. He would have tried his hand at that sort of fight a long time ago if the summer military operation on the southern border hadn't begun, flooding the city with the sirens and filling all the newspapers. To be buried somewhere on the back pages was not what he wanted. He preferred to wait for the fighting to end, and thank God it never did. It stopped in the south only to begin again in the north. Lavi woke up every morning and saw that the newspaper was filled with the same stories that had filled his predecessor the day before. I hear